Hey folks, I'm Chris, and I'm your Commander Mechanic, and welcome to an experiment. This is an exercise in limited Commander deck building. Think of it like a budget brew meets deck breaking, hence the name Deckbreaker. As you can see going on over here-ish, I've recently opened some packs. 6 play boosters of Murders at Karlov Manor, the new booster type, 2 collector boosters of Murders at Karlov Manor, and 4 mystery boosters. My goal is to see what I've opened from within these packs, pick a legend from the newest set in particular, and build around it, with the added restriction that my budget is capped at the budget of what I've opened from all of these packs. Think of it as an exercise in waste not, want not. My vision for this is to get a pod of creators together, or for you to do this at home, or for me to start a Discord server and a league where we each do something like this and tack some challenges into the mix too, then smash all of our decks against each other. Success would be point-based rather than victory just going to the pod's winner. For instance, the player with the most cards in their final deck from their initial pool of open cards gets an extra point at the end of the game. Or the player with the lowest overall budget gets an additional point at the end of the game. Or the player with the biggest void between what they've opened versus what their deck ended up with price-wise gets an extra point. We could reward game actions too, like the player that drew the most cards through the game gets an extra point. Or the player that attacked the fewest amount of times gets an extra point. Or the player that cast their commander most gets an extra point. On top of points for play position. The last player in turn order gets 1 bonus point to start the game with, a bit of a consolation prize for going last, but then players also get points based on the order in which they finished, 4 for first place, 1 for last place. At the end of the game, it may not necessarily be the game's winner that walks home with the victory. But that is for another day. Let's take a look at what I cracked from my packs and what I have to work with. And you can find the full list of everything that I opened over at my sponsor, Moxfield. I used Moxfield's lowest cost option in their deck builder to make sure that versions don't matter, so a widescreen or a lucky foil doesn't give somebody a spiky advantage in terms of cost. My pool didn't have a lot of real value to it. From a money standpoint, to give me some room to play with in the budget, I opened a Leyline of the Guild pack, an Eldrazi Monument, and a special guest gamble. But out of all 12 packs, I opened just about $78 US worth of cards. That's alright, and I can definitely work with it. I build budget decks around the $45 mark, so $78 is a luxury. But if I'm keeping the restriction of using just a legend from Murders at Karlov Manor, the latest set to Magic, well then, I'm in a bit of a pickle. And I managed to open a Tachiova Benthic Druid from a mystery booster, and that would be awesome to build around at this budget. But she's not from Murders at Karlov Manor, and I really want to highlight the new cards from the new set. So if I'm looking at new set legends, well, I'm limited to only 2. I guess technically 3. I opened the new Alquist Proth, a blue and white detective that investigates, but also has this awesome activated ability that's a Sphinx's Revelation on demand, and that, my friends, can be pretty good. It's tempting to build around Proth because I also opened a Detective of the Month from a collector booster, so packing the list full of investigating detectives has an upside, and I pretty much already have a win con in my pool. The Conspiracy Unraveler I opened, one of only 3 mythics in the entire pool, would be right at home in this list as well. Not only is the Sphinx a detective, but being able to collect evidence and cast spells for free? That's pretty awesome. My other option, or options I guess, is Izoni Center of the Web. I happen to open 2 copies of this black and green legend. Izoni wants us to be collecting evidence, making tokens, surveilling, and drawing cards. Those are like all awesome things, right? Considering I opened an Eye of Duskmantle that lets us pay life to cast spells that were surveilled, it works fantastically with Izoni. That's a possible game winner right there. But what's really pushing me towards Izoni is Persuasive Interrogators. This 6 mana 5/6 Detective Gorgon investigates on enters the battlefield, making a clue, but also says, whenever you sacrifice a clue, target opponent gets 2 poison counters. Now that is a win con. A black and green deck built around amassing clues, sacrificing them, and knocking out opponents with poison. That way you could be attacking with menacing spider tokens, or you can sit back and pull the trigger whenever you want. And that, to me, sounds like fun. So let's look at what's keepable from my pool before we cash in the rest to build the deck out further. First, we get to keep some real heaters. Archdruid's Charm is great and, despite its triple green casting cost, is very manageable in our deck. We're only 2 colors, so while we may not be able to cast this on turn 3, it's going to do work for us. So can Eldrazi Monument. The drawback of having to sacrifice a creature on each turn really can hurt, but fortunately, our commander can create us 2 creature tokens on attack, providing we keep filling up our graveyard. This could be a finisher in the list. So could good old classic Overrun. With enough mana elves or spiders, casting an Overrun could be taking out an opponent or 2 and really helping us push through a board stall. Regrowth, Extract a Confession, and Bone Splinters all do great work and fill some real holes in the deck, which is incredibly helpful to not have to go out and find replacements for them. Prowl Whipcracker is some real handy utility on a solid body for just 2 mana, and with Reach, it's enough to keep pesky flyers off our back. Speaking of flyers, that copy of Clip Wings that I opened could do some real work as a nice removal spell. No doubt it could help us get rid of a dragon or an angel if we really needed it to. And the Foil Barbed Servitor I opened would be a fun inclusion. It would be netting us an extra card draw every turn, or it could be throwing some damage around. Maybe if we put some fight spells in the deck, we could use this to our advantage along with some Death Touch creatures. But if we're really going to lean into Persuasive Interrogators as a win con, then Chalk Outline is a must-have. Since we opened an Ashnod's Altar too, we could be controlling when creatures die, when we make tokens, and get a good boost of mana for our troubles. Now, if we're building the deck, we need to take a look at what our ideal interaction is. And since our commander doesn't make clues, we'll need to be focusing on that. The positive is that Izoni gives us an outlet to sacrifice 4 tokens at once, no matter what kind of token, creature, or clue. And that means that with a few clues in play, we could be playing the Interrogators, activating Izoni, and poisoning a player out of the game. That means we want to focus on anything that investigates in these colors. And honestly, it's not a rich selection. 2 lands can really help us here. Havengul Lab from the Universes Within reskin of the Stranger Things cards, and the new Lounge from the Clue set. Both investigate for a staggering 4 mana each. 5 if you include that these lands tap themselves too. That's not easy to swallow, but it is a repeatable source of clue tokens. Innocuous Researcher, Unshakable Tale, and Foreboding Steamboat, all from the Murders at Karlov Manor commander cards, investigate repeatedly. I like these as inclusions as they fit our theme and showcase some new cards. Ulvenwald Mysteries is kind of like Chalk Outline, investigating when a non-token creature we control dies rather than when a creature leaves our graveyard, and also creates us a few token bodies too. Filjaran Witness from the Doctor Who set can be investigating for us repeatedly when a lone attacker or blocker dies, ours or someone else's. And the new Sharp-Eyed Rookie, which I did open several copies of in my pool, investigates repeatedly with a kind of but not really evolve trigger that is useful to our deck's goal. But probably the biggest boon would be getting a tireless tracker in the list. I could get a copy for as little as $1.25 thanks to a few reprints, and investigating on landfall is perfect since we'll want some cheap ramp effects in the deck. We are trying to rely on 2 6-mana creatures here. And for colorless effects, Tamiyo's Journal is great too. It investigates each upkeep, provides an outlet to sacrifice a lot of clues at once, and can help us tutor up some of the pieces when we need them. Bonus! We may want to find room in the deck for a few budget-friendly tutors too. Persuasive Interrogators hides in the 99, so nabbing them with a Mausoleum Secrets or a Wishclaw Talisman could do wonders for us, and those are only a few bucks each. Grizzly Salvage could be a nice budget-friendly option too, with overlapping synergy of putting cards in our graveyard to be collected as evidence. Mulch is similar, but could cost us our synergy pieces, so it's a solid maybe. Now, I'd really like to include token doublers in the list to get our investigation to go a little bit further. However, Parallel Lives and Doubling Season, despite being reprinted several times in the last year, both cost the majority of our budget on their own. If we can swing it at the end of the day, maybe, because they are massive value adds. Primal Vigor, though, also reprinted last year, is just $6, and it doubles our opponent's counters and tokens too. That's very, very risky, and I'm not a big fan, but it may be worth it to stretch our goal a little bit further. And some recursion would be powerful here too, allowing us to sacrifice creatures to fuel spells while not setting us back. And Oversold Cemetery is one of my favorites of these effects. It means that, once we start filling our graveyard, we can be recurring our investigators, or, if our opponents are unlucky, our interrogators too. I found a bit of wiggle room in the budget to include a few favorites, like Mesmeric Orb, Beast Within, and Llanowar Wastes, with the whole thing clocking under budget at just $70. That's $8 under our maximum. You can find the full list linked up top, earning us some bonuses for coming in under budget and keeping as much from our pool as makes sense to keep. You can find it linked, along with the entire pool, at my sponsor Moxfield. Moxfield is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to catalog these cards and craft a deck from them. While you're there, be sure to follow my profile to never miss a brew. And while you're here, be sure to let me know what you think of this concept. Are you interested in seeing more? Interested in seeing gameplay? Let me know in the comments, and as always, good luck and have fun.